Yeah, baby! That's what I'm talking about! That is what I've been waiting for. Oh man, what's where do I start? What's up everybody, D-Man back. Welcome to a brand new video, and today we're going to be doing my spoiler-free review for Godzilla vs Kong. Of course, let it be no surprise to anybody, and some people will be, I guess, because they don't watch my videos maybe, that I'm on Team Kong, baby. We're sitting here with the remnants of the official Team Kong beard, and I watched Godzilla vs Kong last night in theaters. I know it came out yesterday, way earlier, on HBO Max, but you really think the first time I'm gonna watch this movie is gonna be on like my phone or a computer? Are you crazy? If you watch Godzilla vs Kong on HBO Max, that's totally cool. A lot of people are doing it because they don't feel safe going back to the theaters, but I will risk my life happily for Godzilla vs Kong. I saw this movie in IMAX last night and I was very pleased. Let's run through it, okay? The spoiler-free review for Godzilla vs Kong. More spoiler-free than the trailers and plot synopsis for the movie, so it's pretty safe. This is a pretty safe review. My first initial reactions to Godzilla vs Kong in the theater, I was really into it. This is the first Godzilla movie I've seen in theaters I was ever able to fully invest in emotionally, where I was just able to finally, for once in my life, let go of all my preconceived notions of what I wanted or what I expected out of the film. I wasn't watching it trying to analyze for the deeper implications for the monsterverse. I wasn't watching it with the lens of I'm a YouTuber and I need to break this movie down, where are all the Easter eggs. I wasn't watching it like I've done trailer breakdowns, when is this thing gonna happen? I know that this needs to occur, when is this gonna happen? I was finally able to just let it all go and just watch the movie. During the intro logos for the film, I caught myself being like, so I guess this is how the movie starts, and I started to analyze it immediately. I just had to like constantly keep yelling at myself whenever I would do that in the movie in my head and be like, let go, shut up, you know, shut up. Shut up! Watch the movie. Pay attention to the movie for once. Usually I pay so much attention to the movie that it ruins it for me, but I was finally able to just fully invest in the movie that Adam Wingard was trying to tell. It was not like I was going in there like, oh, I want this to be the movie I wanted it to be. It was never gonna be the movie I wanted it to be. It's Adam Wingard's movie. I was finally able to just be like, what is his movie? Let me watch it for itself. And I appreciated it so much more because of that. I cried multiple times in this movie. I know it's like silly. I did the same thing for King of the Monsters, but this is just like such a payoff in my life. You know, I've spent so much time with these movies, and also I think with Godzilla vs Kong in particular, I'm just at a point in life where I could not be less happy with school and everything going on with school. I'm so miserable at school all the time that this is like my escape from that, and so it felt much more rewarding because of that. Also, because I finally did it. I avoided all the spoilers going in. I was able to avoid all the spoilers, and so the movie, I knew everything that I had seen in trailers, obviously, and I obviously had some info from like plot synopsises and set visits that I knew. So it wasn't like I went in completely blind, but I genuinely didn't know who won the fight, as a lot of people thought I did. I genuinely didn't know. There was a lot that I just genuinely didn't know going into this movie, and so I finally got to appreciate a movie as a movie, rather than being like, okay, let me watch for when he turns into burning Godzilla, because I know that's gonna happen. Let me see him blow up Ghidorah. So yeah, I did tear up quite a few times in this movie. I think I teared up like 5 times. I don't think I teared up as many times as I did in King of the Monsters, but I will say one of them nearly made me like actually cry, which is really silly because it's not that emotional of a moment in the movie, but it just like hit me really hard for some reason. I can't talk about it without getting into the spoiler review. It's not who wins the fight or anything like that, so if that's what you're thinking, it's way before that scene. It's actually a really kind of small moment moment, but it hit me really hard for some reason, and I really liked it a lot. But I mean, it also got me like instantly. King of the Monsters, I teared up before the movie even started because Godzilla's Toho roar played, and that just got me instantly. And this one was kind of similar. When King Kong roars for the very first time in the movie, I immediately teared up. Like, that's when it finally set in. I'm watching Godzilla vs Kong. I'm finally here. I've made it. That's all I wanted ever since I was a child, and I finally got to see it, and so that made me tear up. Yeah, the movie blew me away. I had a really good time with it, and I know not everybody did, but I did. There's one scene at the end of the movie during the final fight, one little moment that I was so excited that I started bouncing up and down in my chair, and I went like this because I could not believe that they did that, and they sure did it, and I loved it. I thought it was so good. I'll try and be a little organized here, so let's talk about the human story. This is the thing that everybody's like, it's not that good. Yeah, the reason it's not that good is because they finally did the thing. This movie is not a human movie. The main character of this movie is a giant monster. He has the most screen time of anybody. So, of course, the human characters are going to feel less developed than the giant monster who has the most screen time in the movie. Obviously. I thought the human plot was fine in this film, and that might be shocking to some. There are things that I have issues with, but not on the whole. Overall, I was pretty okay with it. The movie is split between Team Kong and Team Godzilla. On Team Godzilla, there's Madison, Josh, and Bernie. Team Godzilla ultimately does not get enough to do. They don't get explored as much as you'd like them to. They're ultimately kind of pointless in the movie. They don't really accomplish much. That's not really a spoiler. They just don't. They don't really accomplish much. They do serve a purpose, but anybody could have done the things that they do, and it would have been the same result anyways. They didn't need to be on the journey they went on. I found them to be far less compelling than I would have liked. I really wanted this movie to be equally compelling on Team Godzilla and Team Kong, but it wasn't. And I know it's gonna seem like I'm super biased because I am Team Kong, but just being genuinely honest, I wanted Team Godzilla to have more to do, and they didn't. They didn't have enough to do. Also, Madison in particular felt a little strange to me. We didn't explore any of the trauma she should be experiencing post King of the Monsters. She seems to have rebounded from being part of the plan to destroy the world pretty well. This movie does take place a considerable amount of time after Godzilla King of the Monsters. This is set in 2024, whereas that movie's set in 2019, so she's had years to get over it, but she sure did get over it. Like, she doesn't even acknowledge the fact that she tried to help blow up the earth. Team Kong, this is actually where I've heard people on the internet say this is where the movie faults. I've heard them say Team Kong is uninteresting and bland and boring. I couldn't disagree more. Team Godzilla is very animated and fun, and I actually really like them. Specifically, Josh Valentine is a standout. He really ties that storyline together. Without him, they wouldn't have had the focus and core that they have. They wouldn't have had someone to ground them. It would have been a little too wacky and zany and silly. But he really grounds them, and all three of those characters, Madison, Josh, and Bernie, they're all pretty good. I like them all, and I'm shocked that I do, because I don't like kids going on adventures in movies. I think it's stupid, but they did it really well here, and Bernie wasn't as cringe as he could have been. He was actually pretty good. I liked Bernie a lot. He's one of my favorite characters in the movie. Team Kong, though, they were great, I thought. I thought that they were all really compelling. We had Eileen Andrews, Nathan Lind, and Gia, and they're all awesome. Maya Simmons tags along with Team Kong. She's not technically part of Team Kong, but she's on the Team Kong adventure in this movie. She's kind of where I have issues with this. Overall, I found Team Kong to be really compelling, way more engaging than Team Godzilla. I thought they were all fun, and I enjoyed them all, except Maya. I thought Maya Simmons was just kind of mean for the sake of being mean. She's just a rude person. She's rude to everybody. All the characters she interacts with, she like talks down to them, and I just don't like her. I didn't enjoy her at all. I wanted to, but I didn't. I thought she was just kind of a jerk. But outside of that, I thought the other characters were great. There was Team Bad Guy. They're the third team of the movie. I'm not going to talk about them because that's spoilers, but I will say they do not have the screen time they needed. They desperately need some development. This is where the human plot falters, okay? The world building here is super questionable. These guys have things that they should not have, like a lot of things. Like pretty much they don't have a single thing that they should have. Every single thing the bad guys in this movie have, you go, how did they get this thing? How did they build it or find it or acquire it? Whatever it is, because literally every single thing they had was like not something that they should have. And then there's finally Team We Forgot You Were in the Movie. Sorry about that. And on that team, you have Mark Russell and Eileen Chen. I won't spoil it, but I'm definitely going to spoil it. But one of these characters isn't even in the movie and doesn't get acknowledged, even though they are acknowledged on IMDb. And in the end credits of the movie, there should be an acknowledgement of them that I think was just cut out of the film. I think it's just gone. Why is it gone? Why are they gone? Yeah, Mark does nothing in this movie. I was really hopeful that he was going to do more than the trailers let on. You see 100% of Mark's screen time in the trailers. He does nothing in this movie. He is so sidelined, and it breaks my heart. Kyle Chandler's awesome. He's a great part of King of the Monsters. He was fantastic in King Kong 2005. I was really hoping they could play up the fact that, you know, this guy's been around in the King Kong Godzilla universe since 2005. Obviously not the character, but Kyle Chandler, the actor, has been involved with these characters for so long. Give him a little more to do, and they sure don't. Gia, though, she is the true MVP of this movie. I think everybody is going to agree that she's the MVP. She's awesome. And I really like Eileen Andrews. She's a good companion to Gia, and she really helps flesh that storyline out. I think they have a good dynamic. I really liked both of them. The story is pretty simple. A lot of people pretend it's super complicated and convoluted. I guess they just didn't pay attention. And you should know, I was super worried going into this movie. If you've seen my videos, I've done nothing but complain about this film for the past 2 years. It's not bad. There's a lot that goes on in this movie, and there's a lot that needs fixing. But the plot is super simple. It's not hard to figure out at all. One person wants something, so they ask another person to go get it for them. That person can't get it without help, so they ask for help. That's the movie. What's so confusing about that? I don't know, but it's a pretty simple, I need a thing, can you go get it for me? Okay, sure, let me go get that. Can you guys help me go get this thing? And then they help them go get the thing. That's the movie. Oh, and then there's also Godzilla. He's cranky. That's also the movie. Godzilla's cranky. There you go. That's the whole film. What's so hard to understand about that? One thing I didn't really enjoy about this is that Monarch technically does a lot in this movie, but they feel like they take a back seat. I don't really like the way Monarch is portrayed in this movie. It feels like they're completely forgotten about. Technically, Eileen Andrews is a member of Monarch, and Nathan Lind is on Team Monarch, but they don't feel like Monarch. All the Skull Island stuff, everything with Kong feels like it's its own very isolated section of Monarch. Meanwhile, Mark Russell feels like actual Monarch, and he has like 2 seconds of screen time, so we don't feel Monarch's presence in this movie at all. Like, they are the biggest presence in the Monsterverse, and they're just gone from this story. Felt a little strange. There's also a lot of world building and continuity questions. I'm not going to call them errors. I'm just going to call them questions. They need to be fleshed out. We need some explanation in regards to technology, the Hollow Earth, specifically the way the Hollow Earth is portrayed in King of the Monsters versus the way it's portrayed here, and some of the cast. It's questionable. I don't really understand why they made some of the choices they made with the cast, but they did, and it brings up some big why is that character acting the way they're acting kind of questions. There's 2 characters in particular who I go, why are you the way you are? You shouldn't be this way, as far as I'm aware. The kaiju stuff is really good, though. That's what you're going to hear from everybody. Godzilla and Kong have 2 separate storylines and 1 shared storyline. They have like 3 storylines going on, so I guess that's maybe what people think is confusing or complicated about the movie. Godzilla's story is pretty simple. It's pretty cool. It doesn't really get a lot of screen time. You're not really devoting enough time to that, and I think it's a good thing they did that. But basically, Godzilla's on a mission in this movie, and he's kind of acting like a jerk. It's got him acting like the old Toho Godzilla, and so he's kind of portrayed the way he's portrayed in many of the Toho Godzilla movies, where he doesn't really show up a lot. When he does show up, he just kind of shows up to cause problems for people. He's an obstacle. It's kind of like that. He's a lot of the Toho movies, he's just like a big gun who shows up to be a weapon for either the good guys or the bad guys. That's kind of how he is in this movie. He's his own big gun. He's just showing up to do his own thing, and he's just kind of a jerk about it. But that's, at the end of the day, he's on a mission. Meanwhile, Kong's story, it's a little harder to talk about without spoilers, but basically this is a King Kong movie. King Kong vs. Godzilla is a King Kong movie that feels like a Godzilla movie, where Godzilla and Kong get equal amounts of screen time, but Godzilla has a little more influence over the film. Godzilla vs. Kong is a King Kong movie that feels like a King Kong movie, where Kong gets most of the screen time and Godzilla's the big bad of the picture, who still technically has the most influence over the story. Godzilla's the one that kind of dictates everything Team Kong does, but it still feels like a King Kong movie. Also, in this movie, Kong is just straight up the main character. He has more screen time than maybe any single character in the movie, including the human cast. His screen time in this film, I think probably pushes him to more screen time than any kaiju in the MonsterVerse so far. He's the main character. We see the movie through his eyes. This movie feels a little more like Kong Skull Island 2, but we're following up on the events of Godzilla King of the Monsters. That's kind of the way I saw it, which I think makes sense because Godzilla's had 2 movies in the MonsterVerse, so if you're going to be upset that Kong gets more screen time here, don't worry about it. Godzilla has 2 movies. Kong only has 1. Let him have this one. Don't worry, Godzilla's not completely sidelined. He's still doing things. Also, I think Kong is a really compelling lead. He's humanized a lot, and from the first scene of this movie, we get a lot more character depth with Kong than we ever really have before. He's realized as like a person rather than a monster. And in some ways, it makes the movie kind of feel like what would happen if a person fought Godzilla, like a giant kaiju-sized person, because Kong is very humanized in this movie. He's still monstrous and he still acts like a gorilla at times, like a monster at others, but overall, he's kind of just like a dude. He's just kind of like a guy. And I really liked that. I loved Kong's character in this movie. I thought it was really interesting, really compelling, and I thought he was a great lead. The Godzilla vs. Kong story is super duper simple. Godzilla does not like Kong at all. Period. That's it. All Godzilla wants is Kong to bow to him. That's all he's interested in. Godzilla's doing his own thing, and he'll occasionally show up to be like, hey Kong, I don't like you, go back home, and then he'll go back to doing his own thing again. And that's why this movie needed to be told from Kong's perspective, because otherwise, Kong would feel like he's distracting from Godzilla's story. Godzilla's doing important things, okay? He is on a mission, and if we were seeing the movie from Godzilla's perspective, it would be like, why do we keep having him go to Kong? He has more important things to be doing than worrying about a big monkey. But because we're seeing the movie from Kong's perspective, Godzilla keeps just targeting this dude for no reason, and it feels really sad. And meanwhile, Godzilla's doing his own thing in the background, and that's why I think it's important that the movie has more Kong screen time, because otherwise the plot would have felt a little clunky. The soundtrack's okay. Sometimes the music is great, sometimes it's not. I thought the licensed music was all really good, but the score leaves something to be desired. The music in context is actually really cool. Some of the songs are awesome, but on their own, the tracks don't really hold up. The instruments sometimes feel really off. They sound like really synthy and very not great. Like synthy in terms of like old video game soundtrack. And sometimes they're okay, but most of the time they're just not as memorable as in the other films. There's nothing as cool as the music in Kong Skull Island, and the lack of Ifukube music feels like a major regression. I think the soundtrack is way too derivative of some of the other films. The visual effects are absolutely phenomenal. I think they're incredible, and they accomplish something really amazing with the smallest budget of the MonsterVerse. Everything looks really great, and I thought that there wasn't any noticeably bad green screen. The colors all worked really well. The movie's really well lit. Everything's really well shot. Godzilla and Kong move pretty well. They don't move as well as they do in the other movies at times, but overall, I think they move really well. Everything looks super top-notch. There's some of the best visuals I've seen in a movie. And I know a lot of people are wondering, like, do they shoot the kaiju fights really shaky and whatnot? They shoot them really well. You get to see everything, and you truly feel it. You know, you're not being distracted by humans. You're not being distracted by shaky cam. The camera's not whipping around constantly. You get to just watch the fights. It's not as pulled back as it was in the Toho films, where you just kind of sit back in the distance and watch them fight. You're up in the action, but it's really well done, well realized. You can see everything that's happening. I think it's actually some of the best monster fighting, if not the best monster fighting, period. I think it's better than all the other MonsterVerse films. I might have to pay some attention to the choreography the next time I see it to see if the choreography matches Kong Skull Island, but overall, the way it's shot, the way it looks, I think it's the best monster fighting I've ever seen in a movie. Period. And that's something to celebrate. Overall, Godzilla vs. Kong is not a perfect movie, but it's a really great ride. I thought it was super fun, and I had a really good time with it. If you allow the movie to do what it wants to do, you won't be disappointed. The movie is just trying to have some fun, so if you have some fun with it, you're gonna be entertained. There are 3 rounds of Godzilla and Kong fighting, and that's kind of a statement that I'm sure people will contest, because one of the rounds is pretty back-to-back with the other one, but lots of people consider King Kong vs. Godzilla to be a 3-round movie where Kong loses 2 rounds. You know, he gets knocked out at one point, and so that's the end of a round, and then they get to fight again, and then Kong wins in 1962, as many people don't like to acknowledge. But if that movie's a 3-rounder, then this one's also a 3-rounder, in my opinion. They even at one point say, well, that's round 2, so it's 3 rounds. This is not how I would have made the movie, but I'm ultimately happy with what we got. I'm not disappointed with it at all. I would have made it much more grounded and serious and dark and gritty, but that's just me. I think what we got is absolutely perfect for what it is. What it is the opposite of what I would have done. It's a super fun, light, exciting movie, and that's probably better. That's probably the way to go with Godzilla vs. Kong, so I think they made the right call. Overall, I give Godzilla vs. Kong an 8.5 out of 10. It's not perfect, but it's a really good time. A lot of the times with Godzilla movies, my score tends to lower immediately after I watch it, so it'll be really high. I typically give them all like 9 out of 10 the first time I see them, and then it'll lower, and then it'll go back up eventually. It will never reach the same heights, but like with King of the Monsters, it went from being like a 9 out of 10 to like a 7 out of 10. Now I'm settled at like an 8. I'm sure Godzilla vs. Kong will go through a similar story arc, but at the moment, I'm pretty convinced that it will stick relatively around the 8.5 mark in my books. I really had a good time with this one. And if anybody was gonna hate this movie, it was gonna be me. King Kong vs. Godzilla is my favorite movie ever, and the MonsterVerse films, I'm very particular about the way they're done. So if anybody was gonna hate this movie, it would be me, and I did not hate this movie. So you probably won't either. Thank you for everybody who supports the channel, especially to my patrons on Patreon. I really appreciate it, guys. You guys are the best. If you want to join the Patreon, links down in the bottom of the description. We got a Discord where you can come chat, and it's a lot of fun. For those of you who like and subscribe, remember that you guys are the real heroes. For the rest of you, I'll see you guys next time. D-Man, out.